Hey guys, Dan here with the daily self-quarantine video. This is day number 5. And I thought it might be nice because people keep posting like on Facebook and stuff. What should I watch during the shutdown? What should I be binging? Give me ideas for shows. Give me ideas for movies. So I thought, you know what? I compiled a list of 20 TV shows that you can stream on the streaming major services, Netflix or Hulu, or I think I have one from CBS All Access, and then one from Disney Plus, one from Amazon Prime. I have specifically chosen shows that are done. They have ended. All the episodes are up, so you can binge the whole thing and not be like, oh my god, when's the next season coming? Nope, they're all done, so you can have a look at all of them. There's a couple of caveats to that in the 20. And they're more of like reality-based shows, so they're sort of, you can kind of jump in and out. There's no specific order you have to watch them, so that's why I put those on the list. But I didn't go too far back. I mean, I could have picked shows from the 60s or 70s or even further back than that to watch, because I love the history of television. I've seen many shows from many decades, but I kept it to 80s and forward, and there's only 2 shows from the 80s on here that I think are, I don't know, important enough that maybe you either haven't seen them or deserve a rewatch. And I've also tried to stay away, for the most part, from like the really obvious ones, The Office, Parks and Rec, Arrested Development, like all the things that people always binge. So there's a couple of them on here, but not too many. So we're going to go in order of streamer. And some of these shows are on a couple different streamers, which I will mention at the time. But basically, like, I've tried to think of, because we just did the best of the decade, I've tried to pluck some out from that, but also add on some that I was sort of bummed I didn't get to put on my list. So you're going to hear, maybe some repeats from that if you saw that, but these are Dan's suggestions for 20 shows you can binge while you are on quarantine. The other caveat I want to say is there are a lot of comedies on here. There's more comedies, much more than anything else, any dramas. I watch comedies probably more often. I've only really been watching dramas for the last, 10 years or so. Really ever since Lost came on, so maybe 15 years by now. But a lot of the ones I watch are still in production, so can't mention those. But there are a few dramas on the list. But other than that, I also find that in times of crisis and such, you want to laugh. So comedy might be a little bit more appropriate, I think, at this time. There's definitely some non-comedies on the list, but I think for the most part, I know I like to laugh, in the face of, crisis and sad news. Netflix is the most popular, so I guess we'll start there, but Hulu by far has the biggest and best TV catalog, so I have the most picks on here from Hulu, but we'll start with Netflix, that's fine. So the first one actually breaks every rule I just said. It is off the air, but it's a drama, and it's also one that everybody always talks about watching and binging, and that's Breaking Bad. The reason this is on the list is because Better Call Saul has just announced its 6th and final season, which will air, God willing, in 2021. Season 5 just went on a few weeks ago on the air. So, as they gear into the last season, it's going to probably dovetail very nicely with the beginning of Breaking Bad, since it's a prequel. So I would suggest binging Breaking Bad. Even if you've already done it, I think you could rewatch that. And then Better Call Saul is on Netflix as well, up to the the previous season that's not airing. So the first 4 seasons of Saul are on there as well, which you could watch. Okay, this is one that was on several lists when we did the best of the decade. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Just wrapped last year. It's only 4 seasons, and I think for the most part, they're not like full 22 episode seasons, but they're not 13 episodes either. I think most are in that like 18 range that the CW seems to like. It's funny. It does definitely get sad and dark in the third and fourth season while still being funny, but it deals with some real serious, topics, including mental health. But each episode has 2 to 3 original songs. That's fun. So I would recommend that. Okay, next is The Good Place. This just wrapped this year, but all 4 seasons are available. The first 3 are on Netflix. The most recent season is on Hulu. And that is just a brilliant show. It was on, I think, just about all 4 of our lists for the best of the decade. Just brilliant writing, great acting, so funny. So yeah, that's highly recommended. You can see that over 2 streaming platforms. You can see all the episodes there. Next, The New Girl. Oh, loved this show. I was heartbroken to not be able to put it in my top 10 comedies of the decade. It was like one of the ones, it was either number 11 or number 12. Like, I just cut it off. So I want to give it its due now. New Girl definitely wasn't quite consistent all the way through, but easily those first like 5 seasons are pretty solid. And even the last couple are good. I wouldn't say they're quite up there, and that's probably why I didn't put it in my top 10. But this is a great show. If you missed New Girl when it was originally on Fox, if you are a fan of Friends, if you're a fan of even Seinfeld, I would say. I mean, it's a great ensemble comedy. If you're a fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the people on this show aren't quite as jerky as that, but I would definitely recommend this show. It's better for sure than How I Met Your Mother. So yeah, New Girl, 7 seasons, and those are all up on Netflix. All right, now this one, not quite a comedy. In fact, not a comedy at all, but it is a classic. It's one of my 80s picks, and that is Star Trek: The Next Generation. You can get this and all the Star Trek shows on CBS All Access as well. And some of them I think are available on Hulu maybe too currently, but Netflix has every episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and this, to me, is the defining Star Trek show. If you've ever thought about, kind of taking a deep dive into Star Trek and not knowing where to start, Next Generation is where to start. Now, I will say the first season is actually pretty slow, so you maybe want to start with season 2, because you'll catch on to who the characters are pretty quickly. And, back then dramas weren't so serialized, so you can pick up with season 2 and not really miss much of plot wise from the first season. That would be my recommendation, because if you've never watched Star Trek, season 1 is a little slow, so I think it will turn people off that are not really that familiar with Star Trek. But if you've ever wanted to take a sci-fi deep dive, there's plenty of sci-fi shows on that you can do that with. The original Twilight Zone is on Netflix. Like I said, all the Star Trek shows are on all the streamers. X-Files is on Hulu, which I didn't put that on the list because that's another one that's like everybody binges that all the time. But that's another one. But yeah, I mean, there's not a shortage of sci-fi material. This, though, I don't know if it's the right time to look into some of that, creepy, conspiracy theory stuff from X-Files. I think Next Generation's probably the right path to choose here. And then my final show on Netflix is Weeds. I am currently going through all the Weeds seasons because they've announced the reboot. I don't know, when that's going to happen. They have never announced a date, and now with the shutdown of Hollywood, who knows when they'll pick that back up, if they will pick it back up. But in the meantime, I've been watching all the seasons and actually recording season reviews for it and sort of stockpiling them to release once a week leading up to the reboot. So hopefully the reboot happens. But either way, if it doesn't, we have this great show. Now, this is one of the few shows on the list that I have not seen all the episodes for. I don't think I've seen all the Next Generation episodes either. But here, I have seen the first 4 seasons, which is half of the run of the show, and they're all great. After that, I don't know. You're on your own. But the first 4 seasons of Weeds anyway are great. All 8 seasons are up on Netflix. So let's move on to Hulu. First up is a show that I think does get talked about, but it's definitely overshadowed by its NBC Thursday counterparts, The Office and Parks and Rec. My first on the Hulu list is 30 Rock. This is a brilliant show. Melissa, my good buddy, put it in her top 10 comedies of the decade. It was one of those that like fell between two decades, so I didn't put it on, but I easily could have. The last 3 seasons are just as strong as the first 3. This is a free-for-all show. Anything goes. It's brilliant writing. Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin are great sparring partners, and they're friends sometimes, but enemies others. And the whole supporting cast is great. This is another great ensemble show. So 30 Rock for sure is a winner. Up next, this is a little-known show. It's called Alone Together. It lasted 2 years on Freeform. Just a couple years ago. I recently discovered it about a year ago, I guess. Because I don't know, I'm not in the demo at all for Freeform, but I loved The Fosters, and I watched The Bold Type, and I watch Grownish now. It premiered the same year as Grownish, I think on the same night. But whereas Grownish is now in 4 seasons, Alone Together only ran 2 seasons, and I think they're 10-episode seasons. So this is a quick binge. They're half-hour episodes. It's basically these 2 best friends who are completely 1,000,000% platonic, but they are both straight. They just have kind of agreed, like, I guess a long time ago, like, nothing will ever happen between us. I'm not interested in you. Ew, gross. But she does like his brother, who's played by Chris D'Elia. But he's the only person in the cast you would probably recognize. But, the 2 stars, they created this show. I don't know if they write them, but I imagine maybe there's some improv involved too. But it's very, very funny. It's quirky. It's like these characters are definitely like quirky and weird in, I don't know, sort of a Zooey Deschanel meets Daria kind of way. Oh, I didn't put Daria on the list. All right, well, I'm going to add that to the list because that's a great show. But because I know that's on Hulu. But anyway, so Alone Together. Think about that one. All right, so Ally McBeal is next. Oh, love this show. This was, I watched this back in the day. This is sort of, to me, where they coined the phrase dramedy, which I used to hate. I've come around on it, but Ally McBeal's sort of the poster child for this. It's definitely funny. It's definitely got some wacky moments. She's got an inner head, that we can visually see as the audience her thoughts. And it's funny as hell, but it's also very serious. It is a legal drama after all, but for a show like this, an hour-long, legal show, to have such a great comedy ensemble is rare, but Ally McBeal definitely pulls it off. The last couple seasons are not very strong, I will admit that, but it's interesting because Robert Downey Jr. is in it for like a whole season, and it was basically his comeback. I mean, Ally McBeal was the first thing he did in years after his jail time, after his rehab. So it's interesting to see him, shortly before he became, the Iron Man and the most mega star in the world. And John Bon Jovi is on it for like half a season, and he's not a bad actor. But yeah, the last 2 seasons are a little hit or miss, but great show overall. The first few seasons especially. So up next, you know what? I had this on here, but I'll take it off because it is one of those shows that everybody talks about, and that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that doesn't count for my 20. It's a bonus because I'm going to put Daria on instead. But yeah, Buffy I put on begrudgingly because I was like, well, people do always talk about it. People do binge it. But it is a great show. It's so solid, and it just celebrated its 20th anniversary a couple of years ago. And it's still talked about. It's still beloved. So if you have not gotten on the Buffy train yet, if you've never seen that show, definitely go for it. And there's another one that, like, the last couple seasons are a little bit hit or miss, but the first, 4 maybe seasons are just epic, legendary, classic. But okay, so we'll put that on as a bonus because everybody always talks about Buffy. Let's talk about Daria, as that would be next in the alphabetical order anyway. This is a great show. It's all available on Hulu right now. One of the best animated shows of all time, in my opinion. What's great about Daria is the character grows, all of the characters grow as the seasons progress. It's not, in most shows, the kids are kids and they're in the same grade, forever. And I mean, it was so epic when South Park, after like 10 years, bumped the guys up a grade. But Bart Simpson is forever 10, and Bobby Hill on King of the Hill is forever, whatever he is, whatever age. But Daria starts out in ninth grade and goes through or maybe she starts out in 10th and her sister's in ninth. But anyway, each year she goes through, another grade, and there's a lot of, drama with her best friend. They like have a falling out towards the end of the series. I mean, it's such a good show. All right, so check that out. Also, I want to point this out. I've picked shows that also have more than one season because it's easy to say, go ahead and binge My So-Called Life. Daria came out around the same time, and so it always makes me think of My So-Called Life. Or Freaks and Geeks, or, there's a lot of one-season shows you could easily binge, but I stayed away from those. Next is Everybody Hates Chris. This is a show that I think got the short shrift because it was on UPN, a channel that nobody watched. It had a second life on Nick at Night, and I think found some new eyeballs there. But this is basically like, a loose interpretation of Chris Rock's childhood. The real Chris Rock, as an adult, is the narrator. It's a lot like, actually, what they've done with Young Sheldon now, where you have, Jim Parsons doing the voiceover. And, I mean, I guess they've, done it with other shows, too. But Everybody Hates Chris is certainly an earlier example of that. I mean, The Wonder Years, obviously, but in terms of an existing person or character voicing, their own sort of childhood, The Wonder Years was all made up. By the way, amazing show. You should binge that too. I don't know if it's available anymore. It used to be on Netflix, I believe, but I don't think it is anymore. So, but yeah, Everybody Hates Chris. It's also on CBS All Access if you have that. But it's a great show. Terry Crews is the dad, Tashina Arnold is the mom, and the boy that plays young Chris Rock is hilarious. It's single camera, so no laugh track or anything, but it plays like a classic family sitcom. It's actually a lot in the vein of like a Malcolm in the Middle, but takes place in the 80s in New York, kind of in the ghetto a little bit, but not really. But great like 70s African American guest stars come out on the show. So yeah, definitely highly recommend Everybody Hates Chris. Up next is a pretty easy one, and that's Frasier. Joe and I have been doing Frasier Fridays for months. Every month or so, I post 2 videos. Dissecting the most recent season that we watched, and I put them in 2 parts. But if you want to keep up with us on that, Frasier is a no-brainer. I would recommend Cheers as well. It's one of my all-time favorite shows, and that is available as well on, I think, Hulu, but definitely CBS All Access too. But we talk enough about Frasier on this channel, so that's just easy. Also on Hulu, okay, The Good Place Season 4. Yeah, we talked about The Good Place. The Good Wife. Oh, my show. Oh, I love this show. This is, if you're going to watch, one drama that you can really sink your teeth into during a shutdown and really binge, it's The Good Wife. This is one of my favorite shows of the last 20 years for sure. It was on my top 10 dramas of the decade. The Good Fight, which is the current incarnation, is also good on CBS All Access, but like I said, we're not really talking about current shows, so we'll talk more about the past. So yeah, The Good Wife, it's Juliana Margulies from ER, just kicking everybody's ass in the courtroom and telling her no good husband Chris Noth what's up, and just the interplay with her family. And then the show to me is the strongest actually in like season 3 or 4, when it pulls completely away from the whole good wife conceit and focuses more on her law career, focuses more on the firm, Diane Lockhart's character, or that is the character. Christine Baranski is the actress. Alan Cumming comes in as a regular around that time. It's just such a great drama. I recommend it to everybody, and no one has been disappointed, by the way, that I've recommended it to. Next is Happy Endings. Love this show. Will speak its praises till the day I die. It's on Hulu. Every episode. There's only 3 seasons. It lasted about 65 episodes, somewhere in that range. Maybe not even that many, because I don't think the 3rd season was a full season. But this is, talk about a great ensemble. This, to me, beats New Girl. You know, it's better than all those other shows I mentioned. How I Met Your Mother. It's not better than Friends. Let's be serious. But if you like Friends, and that style of humor, I think you will enjoy Happy Endings. You know, it's very wacky. You know, everybody's kind of got their own thing, but it really works, and I think to this day everybody is like bummed out that was a fan of this show that it's not still on. All right, so up next, and this one is currently still on, but again, it's sort of a reality show, so you can kind of jump in and out. You know, no episode is specifically, you know, tied to any other, and that is Leah Remini and the Aftermath, Scientology and the Aftermath. Now, this one is certainly heavy for a quarantine. You know, if you want to laugh, this is not the show. But it's so compelling. It's so eye-opening. You know, I am a Christian, but I don't go to church. I don't think organized religion is great. It's not for me, certainly. But this Scientology is like, oh my God, it's crazy. You know, and obviously, look, this has one side lean to it, but at the same time, you know, they reveal very frequently, like, oh well, we've reached out to the Church of Scientology on this matter, you know, to no comment. So, you know, people have had a chance to sort of rebut the things here, and they have not, you know, officially done it on the show. They've tried to do it in the courtroom, and they were shot down. But it's just a wildly fascinating show. It is not something you can probably watch, you know, 10 of in a row. This is probably not a binging type show, but it's intense and something that might keep your mind occupied during the quarantine. Next is another drama. This is Lost. This is kind of what really got me into serialized dramas back when it started, probably, I think, 15 or so years ago, maybe more than that. Maybe it was 2003 or 4. You know what? Hold on. I have my great book here, my 1001 TV shows to watch before you die. Lost has to be in here somewhere, right? And they do it by year, so let's see. When did Lost start? Well, there's Bones. Oh, I never watched that. I mean, I watched like a couple episodes. Shameless. There's a lot of good shows in here. Here you go. Lost, 2004. Okay, so it definitely gets bad by the end. You know, I haven't really talked to anybody that's watched Lost that loved the finale. The last couple seasons, it really goes off the rails. But if you want to kind of study, like, okay, you know, this is compelling television, and this is, you know, probably the last, like, water cooler show, because everybody had to watch it at the same time. You know, there wasn't Hulu, there wasn't Netflix. You know, everybody watched Lost as it aired and then talked about it the next day. This is a great study of that. And this is, even though it is heavy, you know, it's about the plane crash and everything, you could definitely binge this. I mean, you could watch 10 episodes in a row of this, no problem. You know, great show. All right, next, still on Hulu here. Hulu just acquired all of the FX shows. Maybe not all, but most, I would say. And actually, Rescue Me was in that book I just picked up. Rescue Me is a good show too, but not the show I'm going to talk about. A lot of people talk about You're the Worst, which is a very, very good show, and that's on Hulu as well. You can watch that, as a lot of the FX shows are. But a show that came out at the same time as You're the Worst and just didn't get the love that it did, and only lasted 2 seasons, is the show Married. It's Judy Greer and Nat Faxon. Hilarious. You know, Judy Greer is always great whenever she pops up, but rarely is she the star. And she is that here. Same with Nat Faxon. Really, he pops up as like the funny friend or whatever. His show Ben and Kate, you know, ended very, very prematurely, I thought. But I think this is a great, funny show. It was a great companion piece to You're the Worst too. But then You're the Worst kind of got real, real dark and was not a comedy anymore pretty much after season 2. You know, this only lasted 2 seasons, so who knows where it would have gone. But it's kind of like in the vein of Alone Together. Like, it's a show that had a counterpart. Alone Together had Grownish. This had You're the Worst. And it was certainly overshadowed by that counterpart. But I think, you know, these shows are very good in their own right, too. So check out Married. And again, I think they're 10-episode seasons because it's FX. So there's only 20 half-hour episodes. You know, watch it. You're in and out in a little while. Up next is Penn Teller BS. Oh, this show is so cool. I'm so glad Hulu got it. I have a couple of the seasons on DVD, but they didn't release all of them. But this is another one where it's like it's a reality show, so you can pick it up anywhere. You can watch any episode at any time. It's not serialized at all. And basically, it's Penn and Teller, the magicians slash comedians, taking a look at different things in the world and sort of picking them apart and saying, okay, well, this is BS and here's why. And, the ones I remember, I haven't watched the show in probably 8 years, but I used to love it. There was one about recycling. There was one about sex addiction. There was one about fast food. So, they tackle different sort of hot button topics, I guess, and sort of deconstruct them in their own funny way. That's always an interesting one. It's a little, sometimes it can get a little heavy because you're like, oh, that sucks, so that's, the way things are. But keep in mind it is from their viewpoint too. So, you could always have the opposite viewpoint too in a different show. But I kind of fall in line with, where Penn and Teller are theologically and politically. So, all right. So, not that it's overly political, that show, but my final Hulu show is also a reality show. This is one with an asterisk because it is still on the air, but it's been on for like 10 years, and every episode is completely different, and that's Shark Tank. This show just gets me every time. I love watching the inventions. I love watching them yell at the people that aren't prepared. I love when they pick an invention and they're fighting over it. It makes me so happy for the inventor. Shark Tank is a great show. It's one of the few reality shows I still watch. It's a good time. And Hulu has, I think, every season up even through the current season, because they do like the next day episodes too. So there's like 8 seasons, I think, of this show on Hulu. So you can really, literally just start anywhere and start watching. Although it does get better when Mark Cuban comes on, and I think that's season 2, maybe season 3. But the first season they had this Kevin. Mr. Wonderful's named Kevin too, but it's not him. They had another guy named Kevin, and he just wasn't that good. And he never bought anything, so I think that's why they kicked him off. They were like, if you're not going to buy any of these inventions, goodbye. But anyway, that's on Hulu. So we only have a couple more to go to here. CBS All Access, again, you can find Everybody Hates Chris and Frasier on there. But I do have an 80s show that, if you have CBS All Access, might be fun for you to check out, and that's Family Ties. This is the show that made Michael J. Fox a star. Jason Bateman's sister, Justine Bateman, is freaking hilarious on it. And the parents are great as well. It's very steeped in 80s culture because the parents are like hippies, and Michael J. Fox's character is a wannabe yuppie, and he talks about how great Reagan is all the time. So all right, it's a little dated in that regard, but it's one of the top comedies probably of all time. It's so great, and if you've never checked out Family Ties and you have CBS All Access, I would highly recommend it. If you don't have CBS All Access, it's pretty cheap on Amazon too. You can get the whole series for like $40, I think. Although I guess Amazon right now is only doing emergency delivery. So that's the 20. Those are my 20 shows that you can binge during the quarantine. I have 2 other sort of asterisk shows because they're current, but I wanted to throw Disney Plus and Amazon Prime a little bit of love. Amazon Prime, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Can't beat it. It's 3 seasons in. It was Melissa's #1 comedy of the decade. It was my #2 comedy of the decade. I can't speak highly enough of this show, but I couldn't put it on the original list because it's still in production. So there will be a 4th season, hopefully, of this show. I say hopefully and God willing because it's like I don't know when we're going to get any of this entertainment stuff. Maybe this is it for entertainment. This is all the TV and movies we're ever going to have. I doubt it, but anyway, for now, there are 3 seasons up of that. And then Disney Plus, obviously there's a lot of classic like Disney Channel content on there, but I'm going to recommend to you The Simpsons. It's my favorite show of all time, and specifically I'm going to recommend to you the last 10 or 12 years of The Simpsons. They have 30 years of The Simpsons up on Disney Plus. If you've watched The Simpsons ever, it probably has not been some of their newer episodes. And I'll admit, I don't watch it hardly ever anymore. either. But I have seen a handful of episodes probably from the last 10 years, and they've all been not up to the quality of the first 10 years. How can you remain consistently great for 30 years with, the same cast and the same characters, and they don't age, so it's hard. But this show is still funny. The episodes I've seen lately are still funny. So I would recommend checking out some of the Simpsons episodes maybe you've never seen before on Disney Plus as part of your binge. So, all right, that is my recommendations. There's 20 shows you can binge, and really, I mean, I've talked about so many more. There's really probably 30 shows you can binge just from this episode here. But that will do it. That's my quarantine video for the day. Tomorrow, I'm finally going to post the first of a series of 4 videos that I've done with Justin, my old buddy from Film Fanatics, talking about the best movies talking about the highest grossing movies of 2019. The top 100, we tackle them all in 25 increments. So tomorrow I'm going to be posting the 100 through 76 on the list. And it's interesting how a lot of them we actually agree on, which is pretty rare for me and Justin. But then Tuesday I have coming up a new Connors review. Wednesday will be The Masked Singer again. And then I've got another Frasier Friday. In those in-between days, I will find something to review for you, find something to talk about with you. But in the meantime, check out all those shows, binge your hearts out, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.